Why are AI companies pushing AI so hard in the United States? It makes sense in certain areas like science and medicine, but in my circles, in media, in publishing, in the arts and the humanities, in television and film, people are like, why are we being pressured to integrate AI? It's only causing disruption in a way that's going to eliminate jobs, degrade the quality of output in our areas of expertise. And still, we're being asked to use it or die.
Use it.
Use it.
Use it or die.
When using AI in media, in the arts, in the humanities, seems like death for those industries, along with the removal of the need, purpose, and meaning of our work. Yeah.
That's not my cabin, people. This is officially nuts.
Apart from AI companies wanting to profit, something I often hear is that we're in a battle for AI dominance with China. So I decided to take a dive into some of the areas where we might be competing for an advantage to see if it explained why we're in this mad rush to integrate AI at such very high speeds. China's enormous surveillance apparatus monitors over 1.4 billion people. You'd think they'd have a ton of high-quality data. As it turns out, surveillance for the purposes of state-enforced censorship and mandated social cohesion makes your data too dull to make AI that thinks well. You can't build a good reasoning model if your data is ideologically constrained. China would have a difficult time building a reasoning model if it didn't source its data from Western democracies. China is good at copying ideas, repeating and reusing them. Culturally, they tend to compete to be the best at what others have done well. They've only recently adopted the idea of intellectual property rights, the idea that if you invent a new technology or conceive of a new idea, that it's yours.
They have no qualms about copying as long as it leads to success, right? That's the difference in values. As we mentioned in the beginning, you asked why the level of competition is so fierce. Well, they all do the same thing. Once they've seen one successful thing, everybody does the same thing. You'd have no respect for doing that in the US.
DeepSeek, for example, is a Chinese AI company that shocked world markets by releasing a model they were calling R1 that rivaled OpenAI's outputs.
China's innovation currently, the DeepSeek is really one example, and I think it's really the beginning of the scale-based, leading-edge technology, cost-cutting driven kind of innovation model.
The cost-cutting driven innovation that Kei Jin is talking about is called model distillation. So American companies invest millions of dollars and have brilliant, innovative minds working on the problem of the development of artificial intelligence. They end up coming up with these amazing, powerful frontier AI models. Then a smaller company comes along like DeepSeek and asks ChatGPT a bunch of questions and then trains its model on the answers that ChatGPT gave it and calls the model it has trained using those answers its own.
Really, a lot of what China has done technologically is a kind of catch-up, where you are essentially taking a Western product or a Western innovation and perfecting it, figuring out mass production, doing all these kinds of things, right? But when it comes to discovery, right, that, figuring out what the new thing is, the thing that you can't centrally plan, American democratic capitalism tends to be better, liberal societies tend to be more successful.
I'm not sure that this is a really big trap because I think that the US is really good at making these sort of discoveries, but the US also is unable very significantly to actually follow through with building industries out of these discoveries.
In the United States, we take pride in learning and knowledge and research and innovation, and then China copies us and executes. And they produce based on our technology. They manufacture, they go to town with production, and that since the 90s, we have outsourced all of our manufacturing and given it to China. So now we are inventing stuff and then China produces it. NVIDIA chips are the most powerful processors in the world. Here's Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, describing the Blackwell chip.
Blackwell is an engineering marvel. It begins as a blank silicon wafer at TSMC. Hundreds of chip processing and ultraviolet lithography steps build up each of the 200 billion transistors.
NVIDIA is an American company. The United States has banned China from importing NVIDIA chips because the military applications would be a national security threat. Huawei is one of the largest technology companies in China. They've been trying to invent architecture to rival the NVIDIA chips, but haven't been able to make the breakthroughs. China hasn't been able to copy this technology for a number of reasons. Primarily, it doesn't have the expertise here. It also doesn't have the lithography technology, which is being provided by a Dutch company.
At ASML, we build hardware and software that helps our customers mass produce this microscopic circuitry.
US export controls block them from selling to China. They also can't get access to the Taiwanese semiconductor ecosystem, the core of which is TSMC, the world's leading semiconductor foundry. Taiwan's semiconductor industry relies heavily on American technology, and so they can't do business with China. On top of that, they rely on American companies as clients and would much rather do business with the United States than with China, which wants to convince the world that Taiwan is Chinese territory. It's not clear exactly the number of data centers that the United States and China have. The United States has something like 5,000, China has something like 500. Clearly, the United States has an advantage in volume there. Right now, China seems less interested in innovation and computing power. They seem more interested in AI diffusion.
The US will lead for some time on breakthroughs, on disruptive technologies, the 0 to 1 technologies that ultimately change the world. But innovation is a process. It goes from invention to production and commercialization and diffusion. Diffusing technology throughout all parts of the economy. And on those two stages, I think that China has a unique advantage, even if it still can't do the 0 to 1 breakthroughs. Because in the end, how much this technology is adopted by the countries and by the various parts of the economy is fundamentally crucial to how much productivity will be unleashed.
There is a theory that AI is a general purpose technology, something more along the lines of the steam engine or electricity. A general purpose technology is a technology that doesn't just accelerate one industry or one sector, but accelerates productivity and growth across many sectors.
Technologies that are more general purpose in nature, they have all these different types of use cases. So what's happening in electric vehicles, all these new advances in electric vehicles, they're not fundamentally changing what's happening in the field of artificial intelligence. But what's happening in the field of AI is fundamentally changing what's happening in the field of electric vehicles.
And it's fundamentally changing what's happening in publishing and media, in film and television, in music and the arts, in medicine and science.
It is fundamentally general purpose technologies that have been the fundamental fuel for each major industrial revolution.
If you diffuse such technology across a society, if it's adopted in a broad, widespread way, a society that does that quickly is more likely to survive and benefit from the higher productivity that a general purpose technology offers. Has China accepted that it can't compete with the United States when it comes to innovation or scaling computing power? But it can compete when it comes to the production of AI applications and the speed of diffusion across their society. China has just mandated high-speed diffusion of AI across key sectors. Here in the States, we don't mandate things, we sell them.
Please give it up for the one and only Rick Osterloh! Come on, bud! How are you?
It behooves the AI companies to get people to adopt it as quickly as possible. And that's why you see a lot of AI CEOs and leaders, just being like, just use it.
The number one piece of tactical advice is just use the tools.
I began with the question, why are American AI companies pushing so hard for us to use artificial intelligence, even when its use looks like an industry killer?
Viewers found out the outrage was immediate. Critics said Netflix had crossed a dangerous line between truth and fiction. Then came The Eternaut, a sci-fi series where Netflix admitted it used AI to build an entire collapsing building scene. And that set off alarm bells across Hollywood unions already worried about jobs being replaced.
What I learned is that a lot of smart people do believe we're in a race with China for global leadership, and that AI is the kind of technology that can upend the current balance of power. Patterns in the history of economics and technology seem to point to rapid AI adoption across society as pivotal. Whomever does this quickly and well may likely become the world's strongest economic, political, and military power. I'm not saying I believe that to be true, but these folks are making a strong enough case for it to influence policymakers and leaders across all sectors. That pressure is finding its way into media, into publishing, television, and film, into the arts and the humanities.
Right, so are you saying, should we use it or?